Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the HBO Max show Peacemaker. So, if you haven't seen it, we are going to get into spoiler territories. Me and Cheryl have seen the first four episodes that have been released to date. So, there's a good chance that we're just going to talk about all four of those episodes. So, if you're not up to date on the show, feel free to go and watch it, then come back and watch our discussion on it because we are going into spoilers. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, one of the things that I wanted to tell you about this show is that I had no personal feelings towards it. I felt very whatever. You watched it before me. You watched three whole episodes before I ever watched one. And when I finally sat down to watch the one for the purposes of being able to talk about it on this show, I couldn't get through the first 5 minutes because I was laughing so hard. And I was like, okay, this show is something special. And then I saw the opening and I nearly just fell out of my chair. Just I was like, this is beautifully crazy, and I love it.
Right. So I didn't know that it was the same writer as the
James
writer,
Gunn. Yep.
right, who did the writing for the Suicide Squad. So,
Yeah.
and it makes sense now that you think about it. Now that you've or now that I have seen the the show, I realized that he went into it knowing that he was gonna do this because there were pieces of the movie and there are characters from the movie that are in the show.
Yep.
So it definitely, like, now that I look at it, I'm like, this is totally seated, and I didn't even notice because it was that clever. But but yeah, I mean, I wasn't even expecting much from it. But just like you, I was like having such a good time watching it. It's just so good, and it's like there's just something about it. I think it's because of how quirky and awkward it is, and like Peacemaker's like he was the bad guy in the Suicide Squad, sort of, and then now he's like the good guy, but he's not good, but he's bad, just like the Suicide Squad. So it's very much like the same vibe that you get from the Suicide Squad, which I loved. So go figure. It's just very like part of the same aesthetics, the same everything. It's just all together, same world, same everything.
Yeah. When I'm watching it and I'm trying to, like, I'm looking at it and trying to see, is like, man, does this feel like it's so? Because obviously it's a lower budget than the movie, but the movie wasn't even that crazy a budget. But I'm like, obviously this is a lower budget, but when I'm watching it, it almost does. It doesn't really feel like a separate television universe like when you watch some other things. It's almost kind of like what Marvel and Disney have done with their recent television shows, where they feel like they could be movies in their own right. And that's what this feels like. It really does feel like a continuation. And another spoiler alert for the ending of the Suicide Squad. And we did talk about that on this show, so make sure you go watch that video. But the television show begins with Peacemaker in the hospital after being shot in the neck by Bloodsport at the end of the Suicide Squad movie. And even when the show begins, it starts off with previously on the Suicide Squad, as if that was another part of this television show. And it is, and it's great. And like you said, they brought in characters from there, and I was thinking to myself the brilliance behind it, because when I watch the movie and I see these characters, I'm not thinking these characters are going to come back later. I'm not thinking anything about it, but they were picked precisely because of what happens in the movie with them betraying Amanda Waller. And then that's the story uses that as a framework to be like, okay, they did that thing, and now Waller is like putting them on the crap detail jobs to get back at them for betraying her and stuff like that, which she could be, but there's clearly something else going on with the overall plot of the story, which we'll get into in a moment. But the the crossover between the two is very nicely handled, so that it feels very smooth. And without knowing that that was the plan from the beginning, it feels very good to watch the show after seeing the Suicide Squad and feeling how closely those things intersect.
Yeah, and it feels very intentional, and like I said, they just fit together very well. It's just very seamless. When you watch the after credit scene from the Suicide Squad, I was actually like, "Oh brother, here we go again. Like he's not dead. Whoop de doo." Like I hate it when they do that. Um,
Right.
but now I'm glad they did because I really like what they did with Peacemaker in terms of like how they're portraying his character and giving him this personality where like you really sympathize for him, especially with like the way the other characters treat him, especially in the first episode. Um, and just like how he's evolving as a person, and now he's the person that you're rooting for now.
Yep.
But in the movie, you're like, he's a bad guy and everything, but he really is the same guy. He is the same like kind of stupid funny guy, um, like funny because he's kind of stupid.
Right. And it made me want to rewatch the movie, but I remember how he was in the movie, and when I think about it, he has that spiel that he says is like, and they bring it up in the show too. It's like I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women, and children I have to kill to get it. And then when he actually gets called out on it, he's like, well, I don't really want to kill children. And it's really great because it shows how like conflicted and multidimensional that character is. Because even the thing that they keep showing you is him killing Rick Flag. And when you see the movie, for me, Rick Flag's death was like the only death that actually stung when I saw the Suicide Squad movie. And because they did so much with that character that made me like him. And you remember that Peacemaker actually respected Flag, and and that was made clear from the get-go. He really respected Flag as a fellow soldier and didn't want to kill him, but he was at that point where it's either me or this guy, and I also want to make sure I do my job that Waller told me to do. And so in that next scene when he's about to kill Ratcatcher too, I see that more as him just being frustrated with the fact that he was just forced to kill somebody that he respects. So now he's just like, screw it, I'm just going to kill everybody. And then Bloodsport stops him. So being able to see more about how he is as a character and how actually complex he is, and finding out like Robert Patrick is his dad and is a white supremacist, and how he raised his son, like they it's surprising me how much they're able to do that actually is interesting, and we still haven't even talked about the overall problem that's in the show.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see more, especially like that first episode. Like if we're only talking the first episode, it really does leave you hanging. It really does leave you wanting more. And there's just so much jam packed into that first episode that I couldn't even take notes about the rest of the episodes because I was like, I'm out of space on my notepad, and therefore I have too much to talk about. But I mean, there's just so many like cool little details from like, can we talk about that fight scene at the end?
Yes. Well, yes, because that also goes into what they're having to fight against for the in the story. But yeah, that fight scene's pretty it's pretty crazy because of the fact that this is, if you guys don't know, this feels like very grounded realism. Like DC has tried to kind of, outside of like maybe like Aquaman, like their movies have tried to be more grounded in some type of gritty reality. And the Suicide Squad was very much like that. Like it felt very raw and real. And the fight scene and the violence in this show does the exact same thing. It feels very R rated. It is very much kind of like what you would expect from Super, which is another James Gunn property that he did, or like like in Kick Ass, for instance. Like it is very gritty. It's very real. It's very raw, and there's still sci-fi. There's still supernatural like things, and it just works.
Yeah, and like definitely I for a while forgot that it was basically an R-rated show, and then there was that moment like right before, and I'm not going to specifically describe it
We know the
cuz I
moment.
know you know that if you know what I'm talking about, like you would just know. I know you know. So,
Hmm.
but the way I'm going to describe it is, oh yeah, it's an HBO show.
Yeah, that's
I forgot.
right. This is
That's right.
HBO.
This
They
is
make Game of
HBO.
Thrones.
So yeah, there was that, and I guess like I thought it was pretty. It just that one scene just felt so detailed because it just felt like her character. I mean, we don't even know what her name is because she's, I'm assuming, a butterfly.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just crazy the way they like decorated her apartment and everything, and then Peacemaker's like doing a karaoke with a vibrator. And I was like, this is too much. This is
It's
like,
great.
this is, yeah, I was like, this is gold, but like, that's amazing that they would have that on a show. And I'm like, HBO, thank you, HBO, for bringing this crude, graphic humor that like I don't know, that there's just so much in this scene to like unpack.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about, that this is a part of a wider DC world, so they make reference to people like Harley Quinn and Bloodsport, and there's this moment with his dad where they're talking about what happened with Bloodsport and his fear of rats in the movie, and then it is them actually kind of trying to like bond. And then the dad, and it's a cool moment where they found a way to find some common ground, and then it completely drops when the dad asks, "Is that guy the one that shot you?" And he's like, "Yeah, he is," and whatever. But you know, the the fact that when he's fighting this thing, or like, well, you find out in the second episode, he calls it a metahuman. And anybody who's watched anything DC, even if you watch the CW DC shows, you know that metahumans are, people with powers. So for him, he just thinks it's a metahuman. And he's just like, who is this metahuman freak that tried to kill me? And then you get more information. And from what it seems, we don't know for sure, but it seems like the butterflies are aliens that kind of infest humans and take over. And they are framed to be evil, but there's something underneath the surface that suggests they may not be, based off of certain looks that certain characters are having, like Amanda Waller's daughter and stuff like that, which was a surprise, to find out she was the daughter of Amanda Waller, that character. But another really cool surprise was at the end of that fight where Peacemaker is going to get his helmet. You're like, why is he, like, what is so important about getting this helmet on? And then you see what his helmet can do. And the first thing I thought was, why didn't you use that in the Suicide Squad?
Oh, that's funny. My first thought was, oh no, Eagly. I was so
Eagly's
worried
listening.
about him. At first, like for Eagly, I was like, oh, this is really bad CGI. But now I'm like, I don't care.
I
He's
love
awesome.
Eagly.
Eagly's the best. I love what they do. I love how like he and his dad were like laughing about like the whole rat thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like then they do like a wide shot and they show Eagly like laughing with them. And I'm like, what? Okay. This is awesome.
It, it's so good. And then even at the end of that fight where Eagly drops a possum and then it's just kind of like, yeah, you want this? Like, thanks, Eagly.
The other scene that I really want to point out that I thought was hilarious is probably what you were talking about, when you were saying that you couldn't stop laughing for like 5 straight minutes, because the conversation with the janitor, who I think will be a recurring character because he's in the
He's in the
opening
opening.
number.
Yeah, he's in the opening.
But that like conversation with him was so funny, and like, and there are these moments in, specifically this first episode, they really touch a lot on like being like correct, like politically correct, right? Cause
They
Because
do.
he was like, you only kill people of color. And he was like, no, I kill some white people too. And he's like, yeah, but you need to kill more white people so it looks fair. Like, you're not trying to target people of color. And he's like, all right, fine, I'll try to kill more white people. Then are you happy? Like, So what do you
conversation
need?
this conversation is about him being racist because he kills more people of color, and it ends with him saying, "Fine, I'll kill more white people." And it's like, wait, how about you just don't kill anybody?
I know.
That's not the conversation. No, that's not the conversation we're having.
But it's just such like a funny way to frame racism and like pointing all this out. And like that's the other thing about the show is that like yes, our main character is a white male, but then he's surrounded by other characters who are not like your typical
Mm.
like a white male character. And then Harcourt has that whole scene in the bar where like you really feel that frustration she has as a woman where like can't you guys just like
Let me drink.
leave me alone. And I feel like the really like great like sweet spot thing that they did is that they're putting the characters are challenging a white male, I guess is
Mm.
like a good way to say it. So it's kind of like he's really taking all the hits for it. And I feel like that I don't know, there's just something fun about that.
Yeah, I like the fact that he is not a great person himself. Like, even though you see that scene with the guys and her handle herself with them and they run off, whatever. But then he's there to essentially do the same thing as what they were trying to do. So it's really great, and he like makes certain comments, and the way John Cena plays him is that it's not coming from a place of like malice or hate. He's just someone that really doesn't get it, and that works. And you can see and you feel like he's trying to be sincere. Like, I don't think his character is meant to be a sexist or a racist, but because he was raised in a certain way, there are just things he does not understand. So at no point do you look at Peacemaker and say this character is a piece of trash that believes all these evil things that his father believes. You just think he's somebody who was raised in a very messed up way and is actually trying to do right, but doesn't fully understand what that looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think makes him as a character interesting as well.
Which is why his motto of wanting to get peace no matter how many people he has to kill to get it, that's exactly how you could describe him, is because like he just doesn't understand like the right from the wrong. But the point is he's trying to do right, just maybe sometimes in the wrong way.
Basically, and even like, oh my gosh. And then even the moments where he just gets so upset about other superheroes, because once again, this is a full DC world. So people bring up Aquaman, they bring up Batman, and he goes off. And he has one of the best like monologues about Batman that we've had before, and also that Batman itself addressed in the Dark Knight Returns movie, where is the movie where he has to face up to the Joker for one final time. But one of the lines he says in that movie to Joker is, "How many people have I killed by letting you live?" And so it's funny when Peacemaker actually brings up that as an argument for why Batman is a terrible superhero or whatever, because of the fact that he catches these people, take them to Arkham, they escape, and they kill more people. When if he killed them, then they would just solve the problem. And it's like, how many people have Batman inadvertently killed by letting these people live? I was like, this is great. It's amazing. Thank you.
I
This is
know.
this is awesome.
And it's just funny that it's coming from Peacemaker too, because like he's a lesser known hero slash villain.
I didn't know. I read DC Comics. I've read DC Comics and watched DC animated stuff. I've never heard of Peacemaker.
Yeah, me neither. And well, I mean, I don't really read the comics, but still,
But you
I
watch
never.
the shows
Yeah.
too. So yeah,
But yeah, I really loving his character. I'm really loving his. I'm really glad they brought back his whitey tighties. Like it's just. I guess like that's the other way like they really make it feel connected to the movie is because
Mhm.
like they bring stuff back. They have these little details in there, and like the writing is just so intentional, like I mentioned.
Mhm.
So it just
Do
feels good
you
to watch.
It does. And do you? I don't know, but I was wondering if you did. Do you know how long this show's supposed to be? Like, if it's supposed to be one season, or is it?
I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, because I need to look that up and see. Because I wonder if this is a show that they want to take for multiple seasons, or if they'll use this show as a jumping off point to do other shows like it. I have to say, like, I love the DC world. I like how it feels different from Marvel. I'm okay with DC being the more gritty superhero universe that I can be a part of. Like, I like that. And it's not to say every part of the universe needs to be like that, but I like it because it is something different that I'm not getting from Marvel. And so, and probably won't get as much anymore with their Netflix shows no longer being a thing. And so, like, it's very fun to see like Amanda Waller and think, could Amanda Waller do other Suicide Squad esque type shows, or other lesser known characters, or what else could come to be because of the fact that this show exists?
Honestly, I wouldn't mind it if it was a limited series because then it really gives it a purpose or like a really
Mm-hmm.
good ending point. And like that's something that I feel happens very, very all too often in a lot of series is that they keep running on and on and
Too
on.
long.
And yeah, and they run on too long and then it just like the story just warps so much that it's not even like satisfying to watch anymore. And I
Right.
really don't want that to happen to this show because I really like it and I think it's like the writing is so good. But I think that's also the other thing that like the reason why we like it is because of the writing and the writer, and and I it would be cool to see like other characters getting shows and like spin-offs coming off of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I just worry about it because I feel like we'll like this, but as soon as they switch writers or if they don't have someone that
It's not the
can
same
keep up,
thing.
yeah, and you can tell that it's the same writer because it's consistent.
Right.
So I mean, at least like if there's a some kind of collaboration or direction, but it's just gonna be really hard to keep up with everything. Like as soon as you change the writing or the writers.
No, you're right about that. Like, it's interesting that James Gunn's name is on every written credit, is a writer credit on every episode that we've seen so far. He didn't direct all the episodes. I think he directed the first three, and the fourth one had a different director. But you're right in that the fact that he's written the Suicide Squad movie and all the episodes we've seen up to date, and he's not just the showrunner. It You can feel it, and I thought that that was a little different to me because most of the time, if you guys have watched television shows, you don't have the same writer and director on every single episode, and usually the showrunner writes the pilot episode and maybe directs it too, and then writes and maybe directs the finale episode of that season or that series. But normally you have a bunch of different writers that get credited for the episodes in between. So to have like the writer and showrunner be the consistent writer for all these episodes, it almost kind of feels like a comic book where you have comic book runs where you get writers on comic book series that have like a 20 issue run, and you're like, this 20 issues is great, but then the moment they bring in a new writer, you might not be as interested in that story anymore because it all changes, and they might do things with the characters that feel inconsistent from what you read in the previous 20 issues. So I think you're right on the money with that assessment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least we can say that it's a lot better than Titans.
I still haven't gone back to watch Titans.
I have, and it does kind of. I don't know. I mean, it's just the overall quality of it. I think is like it's rough. I still don't get why like they have so many seasons, but anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. We're talking about Peacemaker right now, so
But no, at the end of the day, I'm excited to see what else the season will bring. I'm interested in the mystery behind the butterflies. It's clear, like, It's clear that the butterflies aren't strictly evil. There's too many people stopping to try to tell Peacemaker and other people that the butterflies aren't what they think. We know how Amanda Waller is with, she's not very upfront. Like, her daughter and her know something else about the mission that the other characters don't, and that's shown through their conversations. It's shown through looks. So there's something else going on here, and the fact that Peacemaker kept one of the butterflies alive and lied about killing it, I think that that's going to come back later. But I'm just really excited to just see um, what's to come, and it's a good watch. That's basically it.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoy how they're like leaving us these little clues and they're like letting us know that there's a bigger story here. There's something that we don't know, and they're like dangling it in front of us. It's just very pieced together well in terms of it being episodic. Like every
Mm-hmm.
episode leaves me satisfied, but also wanting
Wanting
more.
more.
And I think that's very hard to do with a series, so I applaud that.
Absolutely. So we're running up on time here, but is there anything else that you wanted to say about Peacemaker Get Out for this YouTube segment?
Nope, I think I'm good.
All right. And if you guys want to see us talk more about this or other things, check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. But what did you guys think about Peacemaker? Did you like it? Have you seen the first four episodes? Did you see the Suicide Squad? Do you like the consistency between the shows? Is there something that we're missing that you wish that we talked about? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And we're down there if you give us like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.